Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel. In this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the conflict on the territory of Ukraine, where during the previous night between the 29th and the 30th of April of 2026, both the Russians and the Ukrainians once again attacked each other using hundreds of drones. According to the Minister of Defense of Ukraine, the Russians during the previous night used 207 drones to attack the territory of Ukraine, and we received lots of updates from the southwestern parts of Ukraine, from the Odessa region. It seems that the Russians were mainly attacking this area, and here we can see the pictures and videos from this area. As you can see, as a result of attack, lots of buildings, lots of facilities were destroyed. We see that several fires broke out in Odessa as a result of the Russian attack, and this morning we received several videos. For example, in this video we can see the consequences of attack during the previous night, and we see that the entire building was almost reduced to ruins as a result of the Russian attack. The Russians are saying that this building, this is a hotel that was used by the Ukrainians as a temporary deployment point, or probably a warehouse, but we see that the Russians managed to destroy this building almost completely. Later we received the report that during the night the Russians used at least 3 waves of attacks, and the Russians used 50 plus drones to attack the territory of this region. So it seems that the city of Odessa was the main target for the Russians during the previous night. And when this attack ended somewhere at 8 or 9 a.m. of the 30th of April of 2026, the Russians shifted their focus towards the city of Dnipro, and starting from 9 a.m. we began receiving updates from this area. In this video we can see the Russian drones flying over the city of Dnipro seeking for targets. In this video we can see, in this very moment, we can see a black smoke over the settlement, which means that probably a minute ago something was destroyed by the Russians, and the Russians continued attacking the territory of the city. In this video we can see a drone that was attacking buildings on the territory of Dnipro. Very heavy explosion. Then we can see probably that an object of energy infrastructure was destroyed almost in the central part of the settlement. Here we can see another drone of the armored force of the Russian Federation that was attacking something in the southwestern part of the city, and in this video we can see a black smoke over the settlement of Dnipro right after several explosions took place. So the Russians were bombing the state of Ukraine significantly using hundreds of drones, but the thing is that the Ukrainians also attacked the territory of Russia, and the Ukrainians were also using hundreds of drones. During the previous evening, pro-Ukrainian sources published at least 2 maps. So this is the first map that was published by pro-Ukrainian sources, and according to this map, the Ukrainians used 280 drones to attack deep inside of the territory of the Russian Federation. As you can see, many drones were flying in the direction of central Russia, many drones were flying in the direction of Krasnodar Krai, and many drones were attacking Crimea, and the Ukrainians also were using a lot of Navy drones. Later we received additional map where we can see more details about the Ukrainian attack that took place around Crimea, and during the night we received lots of videos published by pro-Ukrainian sources. This video was published by pro-Ukrainian sources, and here we can see how Ukrainians using Navy drones were hunting the Russian ships in the Black Sea and trying them to attack. In this, according to pro-Ukrainian sources, several military ships of the armored force of the Russian Federation were damaged, maybe even destroyed. Furthermore, according to information we have, the Ukrainians during the previous nights managed to damage and to destroy several air defense systems through the Zaporozhye region, through its southern parts, and several radar systems were destroyed by the armored force of Ukraine. Another important thing is the Belgorod direction. Here we have also several videos published by pro-Ukrainian sources, and in this video we can see how the Ukrainians managed to discover a position at least of 2 helicopters of the armored force of the Russian Federation, and then these 2 helicopters were damaged or probably even destroyed by the armored force of Ukraine. But this attack weren't the most important attacks. The Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation stated that overnight the Russians destroyed 189 drones of the armored force of Ukraine, but the biggest wave of drones was moving in the direction of the city of Perm, which was attacked by the Ukrainians yesterday. If you remember, just yesterday we discussed the Perm disaster. If you remember, as a result of attack, the Ukrainians managed to almost completely destroy the Perm oil refinery. This one, and this object of energy infrastructure was almost completely destroyed. At least several tanks were damaged, and this morning we received the report that the Ukrainians once again attacked the city of Perm, and once again the Ukrainians were attacking objects of energy infrastructure. So 2 days in a row the Ukrainians attacked this territory, and we see almost no resistance from the Russian side. But the Russians are saying that indeed and most likely the Ukrainian drones are flying in the direction of the city of Perm through the territory of the state of Kazakhstan, which means that the Russians still haven't managed to find a solution with the Kazakh authorities on this matter. The Russians most likely demand the Kazakh authorities, military forces, to destroy these drones, otherwise the Russians would do this. But we have some pause, some, let's say, diplomatic pause, why the Kazakh authorities and the Russian authorities are trying to find a way how to do this. The Ukrainians use this situation, use this advantageous situation, and they continue attacking the territory of Russia. Another important thing, of course, is the city of Tuapse. This morning we received a report by, the video was published by local sources, and according to these local sources, the situation was completely stabilized by the Russian special services. They managed to remove fire, to stabilize, and so on. And right after we received this report, pro-Russian sources stated that the NATO countries began additional reconnaissance operation in the eastern parts of the Black Sea, which means that most likely the NATO countries and of course Ukraine itself is trying to understand the situation in the area of the Tuapse refinery and to understand whether it's time to make another hit, to attack once again. And it seems that most likely this upcoming night between the 30th of April and the 1st of May, the Ukrainians may repeat their attack and to destroy the Tuapse refinery completely. So this is the situation with massive attacks, and this situation is very strange and weird because also these days we received lots of updates on the matter of the May's truce that most likely will happen. But before May and truth, we have also interesting updates and statements made by Zelensky. Zelensky stated that we've got messages from partners that because of this challenge in the Middle East, maybe not to attack some energy infrastructure in Russia. And of course, I said no, we will respond. So Zelensky says that despite demands or asks from the European countries and the United States of America, he will continue attacking objects of energy infrastructure through the territory of the Russian Federation, despite the energy crisis that is currently taking place in the world. From the other side, we received a report that the president of the Russian Federation yesterday had a call with the president of the United States of America, and the call lasted more than an hour and a half. And according to Ushakov, Putin is ready to declare a ceasefire by Victory Day. The Russian president informed Trump of this by telephone. The conversation lasted more than an hour and a half. Putin strongly condemned the assassination attempt on Trump and expressed his support for the US president. The Russian president believes Trump's decision to extend the ceasefire with Iran was correct. Moscow considers a US ground operation against Iran dangerous. Russia will continue active contacts with Iran, the Persian Gulf countries, Israel, and the United States. Trump believes a deal that will end the conflict in Ukraine is already close. Putin told Trump that Russian troops are holding the initiative and pushing back the Ukrainian positions. The leaders expressed similar assessments of the behavior of the Kiev regime. Putin and Trump exchanged a warm farewell after the phone call. Zelensky have already stated that he sent his team, his delegation, to the US authorities to clarify the details about possible May truce on the Victory Day or something like this. But it seems that we won't see any May truce because after the Ukrainians attacked several times the settlement of Tuapse, and after the Ukrainians attacked for several times the city of Perm, most likely the Russians will carry out a massive attack before the May holidays, and most likely this possible massive attack will ruin everything that was achieved by Trump and Putin during their conversation. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground. We have lots of very important updates, and first let's talk about the Sumi direction. Probably one of the most important updates is coming from the city of Shostka. Due to intensified Russian bombardments and ground operations in the border areas, the mayor of the city of Shostka, Sumi Oblast, is urging residents to evacuate the region if they cannot withstand the psychological pressure. So as we can see, the Ukrainian authorities begins the evacuation on the northeastern parts of Ukraine, which means that most likely in coming days the Russians will continue offensive operation in this region. Furthermore, we have significant changes on the ground in the Sumi direction itself. This morning, the group of forces north and the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation reported that the Russians, as a result of clashes, established complete control over the settlement by the name of Korchakivka. Based on the report that was published by the Russian sources, we have adjusted the map, and these are the changes on the ground between the previous 2 days. So the Russians managed to cut the second defense layer of the city of Sumi into at least 2 separate pieces, and now the Russians will continue offensive operation both in the western direction towards the settlements of Pisarevka and Khotin, and the Russians will continue offensive operation towards the southeastern direction towards the villages of Novosich, Krapivshina, Marina and Kiyanitsa. The Russians most likely will try to take under complete control this territory, basically the second defense layer of the city of Sumi, and from these positions the Russians will continue offensive operation further in the direction of the city of Sumi, and it seems that indeed the city of Sumi is a primary target for the Russians for the 2026. Furthermore, the Russians continue their offensive operation from the southeast of the city of Sumi. Here we have additional changes on the ground as well. Just yesterday, I would like to remind you that just yesterday, the Minister of Defense and the group of forces north stated that the Russians, as a result of clashes, established complete control over the settlement of Novodmitrievka, and today different mappers clarified the situation on the ground, showing additional progress on the ground in the direction of the settlement of Krasnopolya. These are the changes on the ground. The Russians continue advancing, and it seems that Ukrainians as of now are not able to do anything with this offensive operation. You know that the Ukrainians managed to stabilize the situation. For example, in the Zaporozhye direction, we receive almost every single day updates about this direction, but without any changes. The Russians were moving much faster between the villages of Velika Novoselovka and Gulyai-Polye, and starting of today, the Russians are moving very slowly, which means that the Ukrainians show fierce resistance in this area, but at the same time the Ukrainians began suffering huge problems in the Sumi direction, which means that most likely the city of Sumi, at least the territories around the city of Sumi, were sacrificed in favor of stabilization of the situation around the cities of Orekhov, Zaporozhye and the Dnipropetrovsk direction. Now let's move further and let's talk about the Kharkiv direction. During the previous 12 hours, we received reports that currently there are very heavy clashes for the settlement of Pokolyane, and telling the truth, I expected that today the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation will confirm Russian control over the territory, but this haven't happened, which means that most likely in coming days the Russians will finish the battle for this territory. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Konstantinovka direction. During the previous 12 hours, we received additional changes on the ground. These days, we have a lot of changes from the city of Konstantinovka. Almost every single day, we adjust the map in the Russian favor. And once again, this is the situation by the end of the 24th of April of 2026. It's probably the moment when the Russians began their major offensive operation from the west and from the east of the city of Konstantinovka. As of the previous 24 hours, we have additional changes in the most southeastern parts of the settlement. Several streets were captured by Russians. We have a video published by pro-Ukrainian sources of how Ukrainians were attacking Russian soldiers, Russian forces, and the Russian positions in this area. Based on this video, we came to the conclusion that the Russians have stronger control over this territory than expected. Furthermore, the Russians improved their positions around the settlement of Novodmitrievka, which was captured by Russians just yesterday. The battle for this village village finished just yesterday, and today the Russians improved their positions by taking additional strongholds around the settlement under complete control. Furthermore, we have changes in the northern direction, as you can see, and it seems that the news is tightening around positions of the armed forces of Ukraine between the cities of Chasiv Yar and Konstantinovka. The Russians are trying to either encircle this group of forces of the armed forces of Ukraine, or at least to force them to fall back from this pocket towards the settlement of Alexeyevka-Drushkovka. Now let's move further. The Dobropolye direction. Right before we started making this video, we received the report that the Russians, as a result of clashes, established complete control over the settlement by the name of Novoalexandrovka. So before the next video, we will adjust the map and we will color the territory like this. So the village was taken by Russians, and this is a very important village because this village is located on the Ukrainian side of the river of Grishenka and the river of Balka Vtoroy Yar. So the Russians currently are trying to improve their positions on the Ukrainian side of this water reserve, of this water barrier, and from these positions the Russians will continue offensive operation further in the northern and the northeastern direction, which means that the battle for Dobropolye may start very soon. Furthermore, as for this direction, the Russians continued bombing and attacking positions of the armed forces with aviation, with FPV drones and with artillery. The Zaporozhye direction, during the previous day, we haven't received anything, and this is the most weird and very important thing. So we know that currently there are very heavy clashes in this area. The Russians attacked the settlement of Orekhov, the Russians attacked the villages of Gulyai-Polska, Verkhny Tersen, Vozdvizhevka, but we haven't received almost anything from this area for the previous 30 or maybe even 40 days. So no changes on the ground, or at least almost no changes on the ground, but I'm sure that this is not the situation. Obviously, there are very heavy clashes, and obviously both the Russians and the Ukrainians are trying to attack and to counterattack, but both the Russians and the Ukrainians are trying to keep the information about the Zaporozhye direction in secret, which means that one day lots of updates would be revealed, and then we will understand the complete disaster either from the Russian or from the Ukrainian side on the matter of the Zaporozhye direction. We have covered most of the updates regarding the conflict on the territory of Ukraine. Now let's discuss a few more updates, and first let's talk about the Western Africa. Today we have adjusted the map. According to information we have, the Russians managed to save control over the former United Nations base in the southern parts of Kidal. These days we had reports that the Russians were forced to fall back from this area, but this is not truth. The Russians saved control over the territory. And furthermore, according to information we have, the Russians began something like a counter-offensive operation in the area of the city of Kidal, and here we can see how Russians were bombing positions of separatists on the territory of this settlement, which means that the Russians saved control over the territory. The only thing that the Russians did, the separatists allowed to evacuate wounded soldiers from the settlement in the southwestern direction. As of now, we don't know for sure the status of the settlement of Tesalit, but probably as for this territory, the Russians and the government forces were forced to fall back. Furthermore, during the previous 24 hours, the separatists were trying to consolidate their troops in the area of the settlement of Gao, probably with the purpose to carry out an offensive operation, but the government forces and the African Corps of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation discovered this concentration, and the concentration of forces were attacked by helicopters. As we can see, the situation is very complicated in the state of Mali. Let's wait and see what is going to happen next. Few words about the situation in the Middle East. Today we received the report that most likely, the United States of America will not finish the operation in the area of the Middle East until they finish tests with their missile, with their hypersonic missile. Today we got a report that the United States of America are going to deploy their first hypersonic missile in the area of the Middle East, most likely with the purpose to attack the state of Iran, and just to test their hypersonic missile in the Middle East, and they're going to use the Middle East as a test site. Central Command Command's push to deploy hypersonic missiles to the Middle East has a follow-up. Officials are briefing President Trump on a new plan for limited powerful strikes against Iran. Their goal is forcing Tehran back to the negotiation table, especially on the nuclear file. A separate option under discussion includes U.S. control over part of the Strait of Hormuz to secure commercial shipping. So most likely we'll see hypersonic strikes, and most likely the President of the United States of America is going to use this hypersonic vessel and the missiles and this hypersonic case with the purpose to improve positions of the Republican Party before midterm elections. At the same time, we see that the United States of America continue blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, but we received the report that the U.S. airstrike group, Gerald L. Ford CVN-78, is going to return back to the United States of America because due to damages and due to different things, Ford is expected to leave the Middle East in the coming days after a 10-month deployment for needed repairs. But some sources are saying that under the cover of these repairing needs and something like this, the United States of America are going to redeploy the CVN-78 in the direction of Cuba with the purpose probably to begin another special operation, something like Epic Fury, also in the area of the city of Havana. They need a strike carrier group in this area to increase their power, to establish complete blockade of this island, and probably to carry out another operation also before the beginning of midterm elections. So maybe this is the situation, maybe not. Anyway, let's wait and see what is going to happen next. And meanwhile, oil prices are moving further and much faster than was expected, and currently oil prices are already reached the $120 per barrel mark. And that's it for this short video. The Military Summary channel reminds us to we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.